Welcome back, YouTube. Um, so, um, I usually I'm just waking up or in the process of waking up because of my work schedule and haven't worked all week. So that's why I always seem a little groggy, if you want to know. I want to go over a few things, and I wrote it down because I want to stay on point because I know I can get very long, lengthy conversation. Um, I want to talk more about Can-Am, okay? And I want to point out some things, and I hope that the people watching this will be paying attention to this. And I want to talk again more about break-in. Um, so the first thing I wanted to mention was another issue with Can-Ams that I've noticed. I've noticed a lot of problems with the older ones, but the newer ones, seems that some people are having to replace the tie rods as though the tie rods and tie rod ends as though they're bending or breaking or failing relatively quickly. So even though they seem beefy, that may not be necessarily a strong metal that they're using. So thickness is not always an indication of potential strength or how strong the steel is. So just be aware of that. You can research it online. But I did see where people were talking about that was this already within the first year they're already replacing the tie rod ends again. Yeah, router input factors in, but twice within a year, I don't know. Anyways, so going on back, or not going on back, but going back to something else I mentioned about the Can-Am frames and the engine mounts breaking. Conclusively, I believe that the engines are just too heavy and they're putting them on a weak chassis with too weak of metal and not what good designs with engine mounts and the welding and just not real quality. The engine's too much for the chassis and frame. Now when you go to the 850 and 1000, if it's typically the same frame but with the bigger motor, you're probably possibly going to see more issues as far as stuff breaking unless they've addressed this. Like I mentioned before, there's a YouTuber, Mud Puppies, his channel. He does an overview when he first buys the machine, addresses some of the issues he come across, and I'm going to put some pictures, screenshots of some of the pictures of the things I'm going to be talking about so you can see what I'm talking about visually, and then you can go and research it yourself. But bottom line is they're putting too powerful and too heavy of a motor on a weak frame and chassis. I don't know how much the engines weigh, but it's too much horsepower and torque. It's not properly secured to the frame. The frame itself is not necessarily that strong, and the weld quality is not all that great. To me, it's kind of like you're only buying the motor. And the engine's not bad. Rotax, you got to kind of understand that the Rotax engine is one thing and the Can-Am machine is another, even though they're the same unit. Anyway, so that's something to be aware of. I want to move on to the CVT. With these new models, you have, at least on the Outlander 500, 700, you have the new P-Drive system. Well, it's not all new. It's taken from their Ski-Doos. It's been in their Ski-Doos for some time. And I'm going to be posting some pictures of known issues with that CVT. You have issues at times with the one-way bearing failing. You have issues with the roller bearings failing. You have issues with the torque bearings failing. So there's a number of things that need to be done. And I'm going to show some pictures of these failures and how they need to be. You need to keep an eye on them because they will fail prematurely or much sooner than they ought to. There's preventive maintenance you can do. Keep an eye on it. I'm talking about the roller bearings failing at 500 miles or less, or maybe under 1,000 miles, maybe about 500 miles. You just about need to just put brand new ones on it, make sure they're greased properly at 500 miles. again, that's... Anyways, torque bearings, yeah, they've wore out and wore down. Again, I'll put some pictures of that. Something else to look at. These are things Can-Am's not going to tell you. And some people in the Can-Am departments, Outlanders, side-by-sides, they're aware of this. There are other issues with like the X3, like some pretty indications of poor quality. But I think that it's necessary, again, to mention this to you about Can-Am. Because they're asking a lot of money for what looks like a good machine. They promote the horsepower, torque, all these electronical features and stuff. And, you know, like I said, they look good. But there's some pretty serious issues with a lot of them. And unless you're willing to put in the wrench time and additional money, I don't know what parts of it are covered under warranty. And if it is, then you got to take it to the dealership. Maybe they say, well, there's a shortage in parts. It's going to be a few weeks. You're going to have to go through that process. Years ago, I had a Polaris. Years ago. First time I bought it, last time I bought a Polaris. Never owned a Can-Am. But I know it's probably a very similar experience of constantly having to take it back to the dealer, having something replaced, getting it, being there for a few weeks, riding a little bit more, something else is wrong. Maybe it's a recall, maybe something's failed on it while you rode it and you have to take it back. It's covered under warranty, but, you know, it's just a lengthy process. So, moving on to the next thing. Electrical issues and electrical fires with Can-Am. This has been a pretty common thing with Can-Am, having electrical issues. I don't know 100%, but I've seen the machines taken apart. They seem to have more wires than any other machine. And they have pretty nice electrical systems, but there's a lot of electrical issues. Maybe cheap components, switches failing on people in a variety of machines. And they probably use a lot of the same wiring and computers with a lot of them, even the side-by-sides. There's been electrical fires and explosions. Of course, you know, the electrical fire might start somewhere, and then it leads to the fuel tank, and then it ignites and explodes. You ever seen a 5-gallon gas tank explode? Then that's the kind of explosion on the machine you're looking at. I've seen it happen. So that's another issue to be aware of. Okay, another quality control issue. I mentioned about, now before I said it was the crankcase, the bolt was hanging out, and I'll put a picture of that too. It was actually the bolt hanging out transmission. Kind of almost similar, same thing. But still a problem with quality control. Bolts should not be just loose hanging outside, barely in there to where it's in there, but it's just like you can loosen it up and it's already sticking out. Again, I'll put you a picture of that so you can see it for yourself. Another thing is the factory. Japanese manufacturers, obviously Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, and Kawasaki, they're all Japanese companies, but their machines are built here in the United States by American workers, American laborers, in factories in America. Can-Ams are not. Can-Ams are put together and assembled in Juarez, Mexico, just on the other side of the border of El Paso. A few years ago, there was a major fire explosion at that plant. I will post pictures of that. You can YouTube it. You can search on it. It was a pretty substantial. And you can find videos of all these other factories from the Japanese manufacturers on YouTube. You can see the process. You can see what the environment's like. You cannot with Can-Am. Even Polaris you can find a little bit. They don't show a lot, but at least you can see something. But with Can-Am, there's nothing. I tried to find something. Okay, so moving on to the next thing. Okay, so we moved on from the Can-Am, and now I'm going to go talk about the Rancher. Okay, so before I mentioned here that I was thinking about painting this, as you can see, it's already starting to get a little bit of surface rust. Nothing major, but it can be an eyesore, and I'll show you because it's rained a couple of days. I had to throw a tarp on it. But you see here what happens. Again, it's just surface rust. It's just a little bit of an eyesore. Not a major deal, but I want to see what I can do about it. But I learned why Honda does not paint them. You see, because they paint the backside. Okay? But they don't paint the side that the wheel mounts do. You say, why would they do that? There's a thing called pretension. Okay? When they torque, and torque is important on lug nuts on a car or whatever, because a torque rating is set for the bolts. Okay, they're set to the correct fastening tightness and effectiveness of that bolt. Okay, on engines, whatever, and on wheels especially. Anyways, so if you tighten them too tight, it's under too much tension, it can snap the bolt. If it's not tight enough, it's not properly fastening. Anyways, so when they torque these nuts down at the factory to the hub, you know, it's secure to spec. If they painted this and then mounted this on here, it could affect pretension, is what they refer to it as. And over time, this can wiggle loose if there's a coat of paint here, based on some research and what I've learned. So that's one of the main reasons they don't do it, because it affects how well this mounts. You know, it's more secure than if they painted this or put a coat of paint on it. So that's why they don't do it. They can't risk a wheel falling off and people getting injured and hurt. They sell too many of these units and stuff. But so what I might do, if I can, is rough this surface up a little bit with fine grit sandpaper and tape this off and just leave it mounted and just paint this with black caliper paint, because you don't need to put a primer or anything. You can just paint it right on there. It's industrial. It's for calipers, and so this part will be black. And it's just because I don't like looking at that rust you've seen. It's not real corrosive or anything like that. It's just surface rust. So, moving on to the next thing, the break-in period. So I did some more research on this, and you can come across about as many break-in procedures as you can people talking about which engine oil is the best. Just about, though, hands down, in most cases, AMSOIL seems to be the best. It's the most expensive, but it's supposed to be the best. And I believe there's enough third-party testing to collaborate and confirm that it is better than most other oils. But anyway, so the break-in, when I don't know about ATVs, would make sense that they would do this, especially Honda. When they build the engines, based on some experts that supposedly know for sure, auto manufacturers run the engines at full throttle to seat the pistons for 7 consecutive minutes. I don't know but it may only take a couple minutes. But they do this, it's in a controlled way. There's thermal imaging tests, stuff they conduct. It's in a controlled way. But they run it at full throttle and RPMs because they need that heat for those piston rings to sit. That's why they say don't baby a new motor. You want it to get to a correct temperature. You don't want to overdo it because of the viscosity of the oil, but you don't want to underdo it because you need that heat. So there is a break-in oil that they do when they do that in engines. There's a break-in oil during that process. Then, to my knowledge, they drain that break-in engine oil during the seating of the piston rings process. Then they put in a factory break-in oil. Neither of these oils are synthetic. They're non-synthetic. They don't have detergents. They're a specific type of oil for the process. Okay? So, and the oil that comes from the factory when you buy a brand new vehicle is not a synthetic oil. A synthetic oil is a very slippery oil. Okay? During a break-in period, that's not the kind of engine oil you want. The kind of engine oil you want in it is the oil they typically put in them, a non-synthetic. Now, after the first oil change, you can put fully synthetic. I don't recommend taking the oil that's in it from the factory out until it's scheduled to do maintenance. Some people say, "Oh, I would go with what the manual says." There, you say, "I had it serviced. I had it serviced at a dealer or whatever, and something's not right. It's not running right. It's under factory warranty. They'll cover it in most cases. Some companies might be difficult, but engineers, designers, they put together these owner's manuals, not just somebody. They put them out and they build the machines. People say, I've also read here recently, people say, well, GN4 Honda oil ain't that good. I put some Valvoline in it and it run better. Well, maybe it was the regular oil that's non-synthetic from Honda and you put fully synthetic in it. So, yeah, it probably seems to run smoother. But Honda also makes fully synthetic too. But I wouldn't change the oils that they put in it until they say to. And then maybe not even the first oil change, but just put regular Honda oil that's not synthetic the first time. Then the next time, switch to fully synthetic. Maybe. That's up to you. But I would not, for sure, take out the engine oil that's in it till it's went through the process that they recommend. And so I believe I'm pretty much correct on the aspect of the engine's pretty much ready for normal operation. I don't hit the throttle hard. I don't accelerate hard. I don't ride like that. I'm mature. I've grown. I'm 40 years old. I have over 30 years of riding experience. I probably 50% to 75% of the throttle. I don't ever give it 100%. Well, I don't say never, but I don't take off going fast on the trail. I just don't do that. I just don't. It's just not my thing. But, so, I wanted to mention those things. You can go check out the videos I mentioned. But I did want to mention those few things. I've been, because I'm still waiting on the registration for my machine, I did ride up and down the back alley here several times to try to loosen up the shifter. It seems like it's starting to, because when they're brand new, it's very tight. So you just got to kind of work it. Usually it's like from neutral to first to second's tighter, and then third and fourth, not so bad. But it's getting to where you don't have to really pull up on it hard to shift. It's starting to be a little easier. And as time goes, it'll shift more easy. That's a common process. Was there anything else that I wanted to mention? I know I talk a lot sometimes. I just drank some coffee, so I'm going to be talkative. I've got the other one up for sale. I got it under tarp right now. I haven't put the fenders on it. Tomorrow, I usually take a break and rest on Saturdays. But it's kind of like the Sabbath day I take. I'm going to... maybe, Lord willing, I'm going to fix the front brakes and put the fenders back on it and stuff. I'm asking $1,500. I got over $1,500 in parts. I mean, that's a solid machine. It's a good machine. I have to take out another one on top of this one. But I want to get this one either paid off or past half or 75% of it before I do that. I got to have dental work, and it's $3,800. I have insurance, but I have to pay that up front, and then the insurance pays me back. So, yeah, I don't regret my decision. I just want to get it paid off. You know what I mean? I don't want to owe on it. I have little payments. It's not a big deal, but I want to pay it off. There's nothing wrong with that machine. Like I said, I was looking at getting a new one. But I didn't know I was going to get this, but the whole application process, I was just trying to get consultation. I ended up buying one. Like I said, it's a 2025, good asking price, good out the door price, conveniently there. I had enough to put down that they required, and I got it. And that's what happened, you know. It wasn't really a impulse buy, but it wasn't. I thought I was going to have to save up a little bit more for a down payment with my medical bill history. It impacted my credit in a negative way years ago. I always pay my bills when I can. I don't max out credit cards and stuff like that. But yeah, obviously I've had it since, I don't know, last Wednesday? No, Wednesday before. About a week and a half. Still don't regret my decision. I haven't really rode it much. Ain't got a chance to yet. But I don't regret it. I like it a lot. Some might say, well, why didn't you try for maybe the 520? It's not necessary. It's not necessary. I have reason to believe that the 420 engine will outlast the 520, but again, that's not known. It's a lighter machine. The 520 is a little bit heavier. It's better for the components overall. You know, the more weight you add, the more strain you get on the components. And I mean, I know it's a Honda. You know, Japanese engines and engineering's pretty good all around. You shouldn't have too many problems with any of them. But I like the looks of the Honda Rancher, personally, compared to like the Kodiak 450. The Grizzly is pretty pricey. It is a comfortable machine to sit on, but I haven't ever really ridden a Grizzly. I hear that it's really hot. The way the air comes off the motor is really hot. I like them, the build quality of the Yamahas. I just wasn't fond of the looks, I guess. This one, I like it. I mean, I don't think that it's one of those situations where once I get out and ride, I'm going to wish I had more power. I don't believe that. Again, I just don't crave all that engine power. Anything else that I can think of? Now I'm just waiting on the registration and get the plates. I'll have to get me a helmet. I need to probably take their ATV safety course because I'm not familiar with hand signals. We don't use that down south. I've been having over 30 years experience. I just need to be aware what they might expect, a hand signal. I know what I'm doing, but they might need to know what I'm doing. But, so, that'll probably conclude this brief video. I just wanted to mention those issues and bring it to your attention because I believe it's fair that you have a fair chance and you don't get stuck on a $15,000 machine or $14,000 or $13,000 machine or more if you buy a side-by-side and then have all kinds of problems with it. I've been through the process. I know I had fun with the Polaris, but I also had frustrated and it made me not want to ever buy one again. So, I'll see you again here next time on the ground, and if you want to get more content, just subscribe. If you have anything to say, good or bad, you're welcome to do so. I always am willing to accept constructive criticism, but I don't think I made the wrong decision in my options. So I'll see you again here next time on the ground.